Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, intrepid interstellar travelers. My name is Kolu Poli, and this is District 216, the intersection of art, music, cannabis, consciousness, and psychedelics. Today, we are super lucky to have Gerardo Urias, who's written a book called Take Back My Mind, My Journey Out of Depression with Psilocybin Mushrooms. So I'm looking forward to Gerardo telling me all sorts of interesting things about his intrepid journey, and we could please give him a round of applause. So first off, I read your book. I think you all should read it. It was actually a fantastic read. It's only about like 180 pages. You could definitely do it in a week. A lot of overview of psychedelic culture, the evolution of mind, how psychedelics can rewire our mind. And, you know, after reading it, you've lived a really interesting life. You're an adventure sports guy. You've done tons of skiing on psychedelics, which I think is uniquely cool. Would you mind? And also, too, you've been at incredible highs and incredible lows. Could you just give us a little bit of a brief overview of, you know, how you ended up on this stage with us today?
Time is your most valuable currency. So really flipping the script on how we think of currency and life and how to live life. And since most of my youth was spent traveling and skiing on mushrooms sometimes, those were the, I really realized that experiences is what life is all about. That led me to quit my job ultimately, the idea of just stopping that mode of existence and taking a break from that and stepping outside the box, stepping outside of the US, and going and living life to rejuvenate the soul and to really, that really opens your mind to other forms of living and viewing life in a different way of, again, the currency, what is important in life. It's not just about money. So going through that experience where you really try everything to get out of depression and you just can't do it, and then something comes along like these mushrooms, and then the next day it's lifted. It's so profound and so magical that I couldn't keep it to myself. It's I feel it's a responsibility. It's my responsibility to share this knowledge. I feel as though I was gifted a second chance in life so that I can help others do the same. When it's that strong of a story that you can't get out and you are certain that the only way out is death, there's some reality to that, very much so. I always tell people that when it's a suicidal depression of that caliber, that death is actually the only way out. And there's two choices. It's either death of the physical body or death of the mental construct telling the story. That's why it's imperative that we harness these plant medicines. And if we don't kill the mental construct, as we know through statistics, there's over 3,000 people who kill themselves every day across the world. Those are people who are killing the physical body because they weren't able to kill the mental construct. Let's train our mind to desire what the situation demands.
Do you think there's anything someone could be dealing with that they couldn't handle without the proper support? Or do you think the problem with most people and the things that they're dealing with is they haven't met the right person who can open their mind to the right subject or give them the right terminology or the right philosophy or the right healing modality? Have you met anyone? You're like, honestly, I have no idea what to do for you.
No, I actually do tell everybody that there is nothing that we can't overcome. Absolutely.
Very important question. Do we live in a simulation?
Yes, but I would call it more of a collective consciousness. There's no environment that exists without the perception of the thing perceiving the environment. So this physical reality seems to be, and this is what I felt in many of my psychedelic journeys, that seems to be the interface where all organisms can coexist and all physical matter can coexist.
That was a great answer. That might be my favorite so far. Do you believe in an afterlife? If so, do psychedelics give us any insight into potentially what that could be?
Our cells have been in creation since the beginning of time. So existence itself encompasses so much more than just this life. This life is a tiny, tiny sliver of all existence. And since we are interconnected with everything, we are part of everything. We are a part of that entire creation of the universe. So the way that I view life and existence itself is in that way. So to me, it's more of a question of not whether there's an afterlife, but just how small is it, this life that we are perceiving in comparison to the reality of the infinity of what we are. So I feel that life is infinite, much much grander than an afterlife.
In the context of this modern kind of psychedelic renaissance, if we want to call it that, what are you most excited for, and what do you see the future being? Ideally, in the best case scenario.
Right now, currently, what we have to solve is a mental health crisis. So that's imperative. That comes first. That is exciting because that means liberation of the human mind, the liberation of a lot of suffering. So of course I'm very excited about that. That's the work that I'm doing, and so that's my life. What I'm very excited about, though, is the next step after that, is when we can move beyond the suffering and get into the realm of existentialism and really starting to ask the big questions of, why are we here? What is this real? What is the nature of reality? When our whole species collectively starts to think this way, that's where I think evolution will really catalyze.
And what is the nature of consciousness in under 60 seconds?
The best way I can describe that is something called the law of one, that dictates that we all came from the sun, essentially. Everything came from the sun. And the sun came from the one conscious, the one creator, the logos, which is the divine wisdom that's manifest in creation. And from this one creation, there is a fragmentation of consciousness and a stepping down of consciousness into what can be called a personalized vantage point of the universe, which every organism is. And we are a vantage point of the universe. You are the universe looking at me, I'm the universe looking at you, you guys are the universe looking at me. We're all the same one. It's just a fragmentation of the one consciousness. And the purpose of that is the universe learning about itself. And so existence goes through this process, through expansion of the universe, experience. Everything is experience. Everybody's experiencing something. And then that eventually, when the sun dies, it will get swallowed up into a black hole, and the inverse of that process occurs. And then all that information gets sucked into the black hole, and then the black hole spits out possibly another universe. But it learns and takes forward what it learned during that existence in itself. So in 5 seconds, we are the universe learning about ourselves.
That was fantastic. Can we get a round of applause for Gerardo?
And there's a lot that's happened since the publishing of the book, since we started filming this documentary, and so I wanted to tell you some of the journey outside of the publishing of the book and the story of the book itself. An inherent part of the healing journey is waking up to our traumas and our triggers, especially our early life traumas. As I confronted these traumas and started voicing the effects they had on me, my relationships began to crumble. The most difficult part of my journey had just begun. The journey of awakening is anything but easy and fun. Especially in Mexican and Latin cultures, family is of the utmost importance. And acting against family norms is unacceptable, even in the face of toxic or abusive behavior. These inherited norms have been written in our DNA and carried forward for thousands of years in a sort of inherited family template. I believe we must begin to change these norms and these templates. It is up to our generation to break these cycles. These family templates live deep in our subconscious. There are very few things in existence that can help reveal them to us. Psychedelics are one such method. Psychedelic therapy can help us cut through the layers of conditioning, allowing us to see our traumas and our dysfunctions, therefore giving us the opportunity to rewrite our hereditary story and our genetic codes, in turn healing everyone in our lineage from our ancestors to future generations. My original journey in Oaxaca, when we started filming the documentary, inevitably culminated into a message for my family as a result of our then recent fallout, in an effort to raise awareness for these inherited traumas and cycles of behavior. I would like to show you just a short clip of this message. It is my continual hope that one day plant medicine might allow us to see past the egos and the mental constructs that keep feeding this chasm. That one day plant medicine will reveal to us that we are all in fact one. It's been a very difficult, challenging, and at times crushing journey, especially recently. I have had to reread my own book several times just to stay strong, to remember the stories, practices, and philosophies that jolted me out of depression in 2018. The most important of these stories being the story of my father. I would like to introduce you to a man named Leopoldo Urias. After leaving our grandparents' ranch in the mountains of Sinaloa barefoot at 16 years old to search for a better life, he encountered obstacle after obstacle throughout his life and evaded death so many times. He was in many accidents in which he could have easily died, but his lust for life, his strength and resilience, and his devotion to his family kept him alive. After ditching his doctor's advice that he would never walk again and probably live only a few more years after a death-defying accident in a cement truck during a workday before I was born, in which the truck lost its traction and went barreling over a big cliff, sustaining a broken back and multiple internal injuries, he turned to nature, eventually started running long distances barefoot, and lived to the ripe old age of 90. What I can tell you is that he was an absolute warrior, a healer, and the toughest man I've ever known. This is a picture of him about to summit the iconic Popocatépetl volcano outside of Mexico City, rising up to 5,426 meters barefoot. He was a Tarahumara, which is our lineage, who are known as some of the best long-distance runners in the world. The Tarahumara don't like wearing shoes. He never wore shoes his entire life except for social events and work. Only 3 of our climbing team made it to the summit that day, and he outclimbed all of them barefoot. Here's another picture of him running a half marathon barefoot in Tijuana, Mexico at 70 years old. If you notice in this picture, he's missing his right arm. Whenever things get tough for me, I remember this picture and this story. And this is how I know I will continue my mission no matter how difficult things get, no matter what stands in my way. Because I carry the DNA of a man who, after so many near-death experiences, who after so much adversity was yet in another work accident in which his right hand got caught in the gears of the giant crane he was working on. And as it began to devour him alive, he quickly and swiftly, with great strength and astonishing might, ripped his own arm off at the elbow and walked himself to the office to save his own life, as he was the only one working that day. When he woke up at the hospital several days later, surrounded by crying family and one less arm, he looked up at all of us and said, "¿Quién se murió?" which means, "Who died?" and laughed. True story. He then learned to write with his left hand and continued running long distances barefoot. He never stopped smiling, he never stopped loving life, and he never stopped fighting for his life since that fateful day. When asked how he was doing, he would always say, "Mejor que ayer, pero peor que mañana," which means better than yesterday, but worse than tomorrow. He was the epitome of Stoic philosophy, long before I had ever even heard of this philosophy. And so it is, just as Ines had me yell out in Oaxaca, Mexico last year, "I am Leopoldo Urias. I am Rosario Urias, grandfather and mother. Therefore, in honor of my father, who lives on in me, I will never stop fighting for our freedom to explore our own consciousness, for the preservation of nature, an ancient indigenous wisdom that lives in my DNA, for the betterment of humanity, and for sovereignty and autonomy over our own health, no matter what obstacle stands in my way." Because as Marcus Aurelius would have said, the obstacle is the way. And I will do my best to never stop smiling, just as my father did. In honor of my Hispanic brothers and sisters who may find themselves in similar situations and predicaments as I do, as our ancestral baggage runs deep. For all the black sheep of their families, we are the black sheep of society. Let no one cause you to doubt. Take care of your rarity as the most precious flower of your tree. You are the dream of all your ancestors.
Familia Urias.